Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is September 5th, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. The first thing you should notice here is British Columbia, Washington, Oregon. Look at the ridge of high pressure that is dominating our weather, allowing us to get towards some record high temperatures here over the next couple of days. Very subtle upper level low here will help trigger some thunderstorms across the higher terrain, maybe even some isolated dry thunderstorm activity with that. And then the extended forecast, some troughing will come from western Alaska and eventually come down towards the west coast of North America as we go on in through next week and start to bring our temperatures down here as we go towards the end of the weekend and on in through next week. We'll take a look at those details as we go through the video here this morning. Taking a look at yesterday, I'm going to scroll all the way back to yesterday morning because you can see the marine there that was kind of socked in there across some of southwest BC, western Washington, the Willamette Valley, some of the coastal areas here. We scrolled through yesterday and you can see how quickly it burned off as we went on in through the later morning hours. I went out there dust devil chasing yesterday and you can see the smoke starting to pour off of some of these fires here across Oregon. And of course, with our offshore flow, with our little thermal trough off the coastline here, this is going to be kind of an offshore flow that's going to bring some of the smoke with it as well. And you can see as we go through this morning, check out that smoke starting to flare off into western portions here. So not great news there. And this is probably going to hold down the temperatures a little bit here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing as well. So if we take a look at what I did yesterday, I mentioned the dust devil chasing, and this thing was on the ground for over 20 minutes. It went back and forth across the road to my right there about 3 different times. And this was one of the most impressive dust devils I'd ever seen up close. I'm working on a video for that here coming up over the next couple of days, so look forward to that. And I like to check out the weather stations out there and compare my forecast and see what kind of conditions I was dealing with. So this is Weber Road right off of I-90 here, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff like look at the UV index or the solar radiation. And of course the station's got its own lightning detection system with it as well. You can go ahead and take a look at the temperature, and it stores all the data for you in the cloud. Very fun to have one of these attached to your place of residence, and I highly recommend it. Click on that link down below if you want to order one. So this is day 2 outlook. This is tomorrow for southern Oregon here. The thunderstorm potential starts to move into some of the Pacific Northwest. And take a look at this. Isolated dry thunderstorms. And this is when the thunderstorms are not producing much precipitation, but they are producing lightning. So it makes it very easy for them to trigger fire starts. And take a look at this. From Saturday morning to Sunday morning, they have included some of the Washington Cascades and all the Oregon Cascades in this isolated dry thunderstorm threat. So looking at Seattle, record high today, 88. We have a chance to beat that all-time daily record high set back in 1973. Tomorrow is going to be a little bit tougher because it is 90 degrees. The record high there set back in 2014. No precipitation just yet, but that's probably going to be changing as we go on in towards the mid portion of September. And I'd like to show this graph here as well. We start to go through the fall transition. You can see the temperatures for August starting to drop down as you go through September, October, November, and then kind of bottoming out here in December and January. You can also see how September and October you start that climb with more precipitation. Then November is the king, usually the king month here, as we get a lot of precipitation in November here across the Pacific Northwest. So taking a look at the European, I want to show you the lightning potential, and this is for Friday afternoon. You can see it creeping into Oregon. This is Saturday. It includes the Washington Cascade, starts to move up towards British Columbia as well. Same thing here one more time on Monday. So yeah, we do have the thunderstorm threat across the higher terrain over the next few days. And this is the European model. This is that upper level ridge that you could see plainly on the mid-level water vapor loop. We start to scroll on in towards tomorrow and Saturday. The ridge starts to weaken and push off to the east. Shortwave moves through western BC. It'll help kick some of this onshore flow across the region, but areas east are going to be more difficult to warm up. And then, Seattle and Portland will be cooling down, of course, first, and then you can see this trough starts to come as we go on into the day Tuesday and on in through Tuesday night. And that's where last night's European model run ends. But this is a nice sight, especially for the mossbacks here across the Pacific Northwest. We're just absolutely dying with this upper 80 heat that's going to be coming for the next couple of days here across the region. Now, thermal trough time. This is looking at mean sea level pressure. You can see the ridge overhead, a little bit of offshore flow because we got the lowest pressure along the immediate coastline there. And as we scroll on in towards, this is what tonight here, you can kind of see that lowest pressure here across western Oregon and western Washington. Again, that is that thermal trough. You get these offshore winds trying to go out and meet that low pressure there. Then we go on in through Saturday. It's going to be right overhead across western Washington, Oregon. But by Sunday, you notice the lower pressure starts to move east of the Cascades. Cascades. And that's what's going to mark the onshore wind that starts to arrive, and it cools down western BC, Washington, and Oregon. But of course, the thermal trough will be right over the eastern portions there. And so it's going to stay warm as we go on in through probably Monday and then even Tuesday before this next system starts to arrive at the very end of last night's European run. So taking a look here, you can see as of last night, the offshore winds through the gorge. Here, there's Portland, offshore winds across the Cascades. Put that into motion. You can see these offshore winds going to kick on through tomorrow, and we continue that. By Saturday, they start to lighten up here, but of course, it's not going to be in time to relieve us too much here on Saturday. Maybe a little bit of a cool down, but then we start to kick that onshore flow as we go through the day Sunday. You can see the wind reversal there out of the west by the time you get towards Sunday afternoon. So taking a look at the national blend of models, look at Seattle up towards 90 today. That would be the all-time daily record high. You can see Portland calling for, 101, 102, 103, but the smoke may hold things down a little bit more. So it might be a challenge to get to 100 degrees, but still nonetheless very hot and very warm east of the Cascades as well. And now looking at 2-meter temperature on the HRR, this is for today. You can see it shows about 89 for Seattle. Again, that would break the daily record high. And this might be a little bit more accurate. Maybe Portland getting 99, 100 today. We'll see how that goes. But you can see other places in the Willamette Valley look like you're headed towards 100 or maybe even the low 100s today. Now, taking a look at the vertically integrated smoke. So this is another problem we have here. This is the entire column of the atmosphere, and you can see this smoke is kind of moving all the way out across western Washington, western Oregon as we go through tomorrow morning. So you are definitely going to notice that haze in the sky. In some areas, you'll be smelling the smoke at the surface as well. Here we go on in through Saturday morning. Look at this plume of smoke back across western portions. So this onshore flow that comes on Sunday is going to be much desired. And now this is surface smoke also. I wanted to include this really quickly. You can see some of that surface smoke trying to drift out into western Washington. You can see at times as I toggle back and forth off into Portland as we go through this evening, afternoon, and tonight. Yeah, not a great scene out there, but trough season is coming here, folks, so we only have to deal with this probably for a few more weeks tops before we start to get some mid-latitude cyclones in here and start to dampen things up. Taking a look at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right. This is last night's run. Let's take a look at the extended forecast. You can see the ridging across the area. That continues to be with us here as we go on in towards early portions of the weekend. And then you see that short wave kind of moving through here. We start to get some model disagreement. There is a trough offshore, but the GFS a little bit more robust with it. And then you can see this next system. It's not bad model agreement here for being 150 hours out. GFS a little bit further south at that feature. But then we go on through the extended a little bit more. You can see kind of a ridge developing here, transient ridge on the European GFS with some troughing across western British Columbia. Then we go way out into the extended forecast, and you can kind of see they both have some troughing across the Gulf of Alaska, but the European much closer to the coastline here versus the GFS building this big ridge across the west coast of North America. So purely a fantasy forecast, just entertainment purposes only. But this is last night's European ensemble. This is the average of all 50 ensemble members. Of course, in the short term, there's going to be, good confidence in that ridge, and then that short wave move through British Columbia, and then that next system. So we are starting to get some agreement here with that system next week. That is definitely going to be cooling us down from where we are right now, as you can see the difference between these record high temperatures and the next system rolling through as we go through next Tuesday. Now, looking at Seattle, Tacoma, and the National Blend of Models, this is the 12Z, and we can see 90 degrees today, and then again, kind of that slow cool down as we go through this weekend, and then back down towards much more seasonably cool temperatures as we go through next week. Portland, something similar here as well, and again, the smoke probably chopping a couple degrees off of these potentially, and then the cool down begins as we go towards the mid portion of the month. Tillamook, look at the Oregon coast. Just downright hot today, 88 degrees showing up for Tillamook, Oregon, and then still some nice days coming up here, but then we start to drop it back down a bit here. This is Tri-Cities, get east of the mountains. Look at this all the way through Sunday, 98, Monday and Tuesday, still quite warm as well. And this is Astoria. Look at this, 90 degrees on the Oregon coast. They're surrounded by water. Pretty impressive there as well. Looking at 6 to 10 day, we're starting to introduce some near normal here as the troughing starts to show up. You can see a lot of above normal here across central portions of the country, though. And check it out, that above average signal for precipitation does exist. This was issued yesterday. And the 8 to 14 day, check it out. We got a little bit of that introduction of some below normal percentages here across the Pacific Northwest, and kind of a broad brush above average across a lot of the West Coast here all the way through September 18th. But yeah, I'll be interested I'm interested in seeing these thunderstorms move back up across the area here over the next couple of days. I may even go out and try to get some images of that. No promises on that, but again, it does look like we have some systems that try to move through next week. So we're going to be breaking those down and trying to get some better model agreement on just where those systems are going to come in. But otherwise, I hope you guys are having a good day. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.